You are on tips and streams with your host, Coca.
What's good, folks? Koken here, locked in and geared up to break down 3 NBA showdowns that are about to crank up the temperature. Strap in, because we're rolling straight into the action. The first prediction for today's NBA games is for the game between the Sacramento Kings and the Indiana Pacers. When I look at this matchup between Sacramento and Indiana, I feel like I'm staring at 2 squads trying to pull themselves out of the mud. And honestly, games like this are where you really find out who still has some fight in the tank. The Kings haven't exactly been lighting the league on fire, but that win over Miami caught my attention. I'm not crowning them off one good night, but I saw something I hadn't seen from them in a while. Composure, rhythm, and a willingness to punch first instead of absorbing the blow. Zach LaVine coming out with that flamethrower performance didn't hurt either. When he gets rolling downhill, he changes the whole geometry of their offense. Malik Monk has also been one of those guys who swings momentum simply by stepping onto the floor, and I like the edge he's been playing with lately. Even when Sacramento loses, he keeps them competitive, especially when he gets that dribble handoff rhythm going. Now, I'll be honest with you, the Kings' defense has been a roller coaster with loose screws. They'll trap well for 2 possessions, then get beat backdoor twice in a row. They give up too many second-chance looks, and their paint coverage leaks more than it should, but when they actually impose pace instead of reacting to it, they can hang with anybody. That's been the missing ingredient on this road stretch. Indiana, on the other hand, is in that weird zone where effort shows up, but results get dragged down by injuries and inconsistency. I love what Pascal Siakam gives them. He's basically their stabilizer when everything else starts wobbling, and Benedict Mathurin has been cooking from deep lately. But the Pacers struggle to maintain control once the game starts speeding up. Their defensive rotations look sharp for a quarter, then get completely scrambled in the next. The Pacers do shoot better at home, and when they play with a rest advantage, they usually come out with energy. But they also have nights where a simple scoring drought sends them into a spiral. Their interior defense has been giving up a buffet of easy finishes, and their perimeter discipline comes and goes. What keeps pulling me back to Sacramento here is how this matchup lines up stylistically. The Pacers allow too many free looks from outside, and the Kings have multiple guys who can heat up quickly: LaVine, Monk, and Keegan Murray if he's active. And even without Sabonis, the Kings have shown they can still build tempo through quick outlets and early shot clock actions. They aren't at their best in grinded-out half-court battles, but this game won't be that kind of fight. I also can't ignore how often Indiana lets opponents hang around. They'll get up 8, then allow a 10-2 run. They'll push pace for a few minutes, then throw away possessions. That lack of stability is a problem when you're trying to cover spreads. Sacramento, meanwhile, covers well after wins. They've also been solid as underdogs when the matchup favors pace and shot making, and that's exactly what tonight is. So here's where I'm landing with complete confidence. I'm riding with the Kings to cover the 4-point spread. This feels like a game where Sacramento keeps swinging, keeps shooting, and keeps themselves in striking distance from tip-off to the final horn. They might not steal the win outright, but I see them battling hard enough to stay inside that number, and that's enough for me. Today's second prediction is for the game between the Phoenix Suns and Minnesota Timberwolves. When I look at this matchup, I see 2 teams heading in very different directions right now, and that always grabs my attention as someone who has been watching this league up close for decades. Minnesota is coming in locked in, confident, and playing some of their best ball of the season. I've watched this group stumble plenty of times in past years, but this version has a sharper edge. They're healthier, they're deeper, and they've got the kind of rhythm you get only when your top guys are staying on the floor together. I mean, just look at the way they closed out that game against the Clippers. They dug themselves an 18-point hole, stayed patient, tightened the screws defensively, and then let their big-time players do what big-time players do. Jaden McDaniels was cooking, Julius Randle bullied mismatches all night, and even with Anthony Edwards having a quieter outing, Minnesota still found ways to manufacture points. When a team wins like that, without relying on its signature superstar performance, that tells me something about its maturity. And being back at Target Center, that matters. This building has been good to the Wolves all year. Their pace at home, their defensive sharpness, their confidence late in games, it all rises inside their own walls. Rudy Gobert has been controlling the paint, and the Wolves' offense has been clicking at a level that forces opponents to choose what they're willing to give up. That's usually a bad place to be if you're the team coming in shorthanded. And that's exactly where Phoenix finds itself again. No Devin Booker, no Jalen Green, and Dillon Brooks, who has been carrying a huge offensive load, isn't a guarantee to be fully dialed in. That Rockets game was a perfect snapshot of the Suns' identity right now. They can hang in stretches, they can hit shots in bursts, and they can look like a tough out when the ball is moving. But there are these long, strange stretches where everything freezes. The spacing gets tight, the decision-making slows down, and without Booker's gravity, they simply don't generate enough consistent pressure on the defense. Still, the Suns aren't hopeless. Far from it. They've shown flashes on the road recently, some tight battles, some gritty comebacks, some nights where their shooting keeps them alive. Grayson Allen can heat up in a hurry. Brooks can give you 20 just off physicality and effort alone, and the Suns actually force turnovers well enough to steal momentum against even the toughest teams. And most importantly, they come into this game with a rest advantage, which is no small thing when you're dealing with injuries and short rotations. So here's where I land. Minnesota is the better team right now. They're healthier and they're rolling. I expect them to control the tempo, win the rebounding battle, and lean on their depth to get the job done at home. But that spread is big. 11 points against a Phoenix team that, even with bodies missing, still competes, still scraps, and still manages to hang around longer than people expect. I just don't see Minnesota blowing them out by that margin. Not with the way the Suns have been fighting to stay connected despite their injuries. So my money is on Minnesota to win the game, but I'm riding with Phoenix to cover the plus 11. That's the sweet spot for me tonight. The third prediction for today is for the game between the San Antonio Spurs and the New Orleans Pelicans. When I look at this matchup, I see a game where rhythm, urgency, and situational basketball matter more than the standings. The Spurs roll into New Orleans with better momentum, sure, but the way I see it, this spot has Pelicans cover written all over it. I've watched both of their earlier meetings, and those games told me something important. No matter how bad things look for New Orleans, they know how to hang around when these two lock up. San Antonio has been playing cleaner basketball overall. De'Aaron Fox keeps pushing the tempo, Devin Vassell keeps knocking down shots in rhythm, and that first quarter burst they've been known for has been a big part of why they jump on teams early. But even with that, I can't ignore that drop-off when they leave Texas. They're more beatable on the road, and lately they've been giving up way too many high-percentage looks. 4 of their last 5 opponents have shot over 50%, and a team that leaks that often is always vulnerable to a backdoor cover. The Pelicans, on the other hand, are a messy team, but competitive in a chaotic way. They start games flat, dig themselves into trouble, and then fight like crazy to make things interesting late. I've seen that pattern too many times this season. Trey Murphy has been one of the few bright spots, giving them shot-making, length, and energy on both ends. The rest of the squad is inconsistent, but they're scrappy enough to keep games from getting out of hand, especially at home. And honestly, even though they're nowhere near putting together a full 48-minute basketball, they've been a quiet goldmine against the spread. They've hung tight with good teams, Warriors, Lakers, Nuggets, Timberwolves, without actually winning. From a bettor's perspective, that matters. That tells me they don't fold, even when the scoreboard says they should. San Antonio might still end up winning this game, but I don't trust them to run away with it. Not with Wembanyama sidelined, not with that shaky road defense, and not with how the Pelicans keep cashing these big underdog numbers. Add in the fact that these matchups have already been close twice this season, and the rhythm of this matchup leans toward another grind. I know where I'm putting my money tonight. I think the Spurs get the win, but I don't see them blowing the doors off a Pelicans team that's been covering double-digit spreads all season long. I've been riding these types of spots for years, and this is one of those lines that just feels inflated because of the Pelicans' ugly record. My prediction is the Pelicans to cover the 10.5-point spread. I'm taking the Spurs to win the game, but I'm rolling with New Orleans to cash that number one more time.